In searching to produce optimum image quality, and if you can't, as most people can't, afford very high resolution backs, one of the things to do is, particularly doing landscape and nature work, is do panos and shoot a series of shots, as you're about to show us, and stitch stuff together, and you can end up with some amazing image quality. And the automation tools are, available, as well as the ability to do them manually in Photoshop. So, being the Photoshop maven, why don't you show us the Photoshop techniques?
Okay. Well, except for the fact you said use a low resolution camera to get a bigger resolution file, which is true, but I've become infected by doing 60 megapixel panos.
I know, me too.
So this was shot in Monument Valley, shot with a P65 with a 45 millimeter lens. One of the keys is to, I think, to shoot vertical.
Shoot vertical and overlap by about 30%.
Yes, and this is not shot with a pano head. So this is on a tripod, of course, for maximum image quality. So this is from the left. You can see how much overlap there is. And that helps quite a bit. And then this is what the final assembled image looks like. And just to show you just how big it really is.
How big is it?
Let me zoom in. So this is 1:1 and can't quite read that license plate.
How far away are they?
Well, that far away.
Right, okay.
So just to show how I did it, select the images, edit in, merge to Panorama in Photoshop. Now I'm not going to actually bother to do this right here.
It's a little tedious.
Yeah, I did this originally on my beefy Mac Pro at home. So in the best Julia Child cooking show tradition, I've pre-baked and pre-cooked this panel.
Right.
When I did the stitch, I generally don't like using auto. I almost always use cylindrical, because if I'm on a tripod moving from left to right or right to left, cylindrical seems to do a better job. But inevitably, there tends to be this...
I know it's called Monument Valley, but
yes.
a little too much valley.
So here are the layer stacks and the auto-blended, merged layer masks. And you can see one image, it just used almost nothing, which is fine. So the trick that I was going to show you is how to do the warp correction, but still maintain the image layers in the event that you need to go back and do individual layer manipulation. So the key here is to go up under Layers, Smart Objects, Convert to Smart Object. So with all of the images selected, I would do a Convert to Smart Object.
Right, and then go for coffee.
Yes, except for the fact that
you've already done it.
all I had to do literally was undo.
Right.
So, but in the interest of brevity. So here I've got the image as a smart object.
Right.
I'm going to go up under Edit, Transform, Warp. And basically what this allows me to do is to warp the smart object, which is made of the multiple layers and layer mask.
Now, you could, just to make the point here while you're doing this, and folks can see what you're doing while I fill the dead air space over you. You don't have to do this as a smart object. You could do this on a flattened file.
Yes.
And it would be smaller and faster and all the rest of that. But the advantage of doing it as a smart object is that if you find you have a problem, you can go in to still go into the individual files and edit them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's really the only advantage. It maintains kind of a editability factor. And as you can see, this is kind of slowish on a Mac laptop. This actually goes quite quickly on
so that isn't that slow a laptop. I mean,
no, it isn't.
And I can hear your fan kicking in,
Yeah, starting to kick in.
which means the hamsters are panting.
So basically, the bottom line is that what this allows you to do is maintain the editability. And then to see the final result.
Ta-da.
Now,
Okay.
let's just see
I
how
like what you've done with
big-
the sky. Very dramatic.
Yes. The rays were actually there. If you check the individual images, but I did go in there and kind of sweeten it a little bit. So let's just see how big this image was in its final assembly. Started off with 760 megapixel. The final combined image size is 297 megapixel, and the pixel dimension is 29,734 by 99.
Call
100.
it 30,000 by 10,000.
Yeah, okay. 30,000 by 10,000, which
Right.
could make a really big print. And I can print it out at 300 ppi at 36 by 103, or 24 wide by 72 or so.
Do you remember the scene in that movie Crocodile Dundee?
Yes.
Where he gets held up by a kid with a knife, and he says, "You call that a knife? Well, you call that a pano?" This was on last Antarctic trip, and it is a stitch of 11 P65 shots. What was really interesting is that it was done handheld from the deck of a ship. And
I was there.
I know you were there.
Yeah.
I'm saying that for the audience.
I didn't shoot them.
You should have.
Yeah. I've got a lot of panos
Yeah, I know.
from Antarctica. Very impressive. Oops, sorry.
Well, let's put it away without knocking over the lights.
Yeah. It's one of the problems of panos is dealing with them because they're so long.
By the way, and of course something like this would be incredibly expensive to frame, but that's just mounted on gator board. And can display quite nicely, you know, just like that. Very inexpensive.
The thing that I'm looking into and investigating is basically doing printing on canvas and then just do a canvas stretch. So that's a little bit more
And printing on
economical.
canvas is going to be a major topic
Yes.
later on in this tutorial. Anyhow, that's very good.
All right.
Nicely done.
Maximized image quality. But the other thing that I'd say
But
is
one more thing.
I've actually used my little S90 Canon and done stitches. And you've done some interesting stitches in camera.
Well, that's it. A lot of cameras now, little pocket point and shoots, and in this case, this is the Fuji X100, and it has a pano mode. And I just did a pano while you were setting up of you and Chris, and so why don't we have a look at that now, because it was just done by going and it automatically creates it. It's a JPEG, they're not RAWs, but this is kind of fun. You know, decent image quality. And
Zoom in on that handsome guy.
what, this handsome guy here?
Well, the other handsome guy then. Yeah, that's actually pretty good darn quality.
Yeah, pretty good quality. You know?
It's not raw though.
No, it's a JPEG. But there you go. Because what it does is it actually takes, you know, 10 or 11 JPEGs and stitches them in the camera. And so the kind of stuff you were doing there is now being done automatically.
But
in
the
camera.
advantage in doing that is that, and this is one of the things I was going to say about the pano. I started learning how to do panos when I went to Antarctica the second trip, when I brought a 400 DO lens. It always seemed to be just a little bit too long. You know, the 200 was too short, the 400 was too long. So I started doing 2-shot or 3-shot panos and realized then the ability to maximize image quality. So for these little cameras, if you could even get a wide enough angle lens to get that kind of angle of view, the image would be so small that the image quality would be terrible. The image quality is actually quite good.